Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Jerron Humison. Join with me, not sitting at a table this week, is Pastor Nick.
We got comfy chairs.
We got comfy chairs. We had to redo the studio for some shoots after church on Sunday, and I was like, it's already destroyed. Let's
do something different.
Let's do something different. So,
and that's kind of what Jerron loves to do.
Just change things up.
Just change things up, just for the sake of just changing. So this is good.
No, reality, I figured now that we're into Revelation 6, I needed...
You need to get a little more comfortable.
I just needed something to grab a hold on. Like, I just
need
to be ready to go. Like,
buckle up. Here we go.
Oh, man. So...
It's nice.
But
nice. I like what you've done with the place.
Thanks. It changes constantly. It never stays the same. So if you are listening to the podcast and you're not watching, we did change the studio up because I wasn't kidding. We are going back to your sermon on Sunday, walking through Revelation 6.
Okay.
Which is probably the beginning of the hairy scaries.
Yeah. Even though my wife was like, I think every message has just been so encouraging, and she's not doing the whole like she's trying to be my girlfriend.
No,
thing
I would agree with that because I think we talked about it a little bit on the podcast. Just the I think the expectation of what people thought Revelation was going to be because of the few times they've been exposed to it. What it normally is like some loud, angry guy up there preaching
hellfire and brimstone.
Turn or burn kind of.
No, that's this Sunday. No,
I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh.
So we did Revelation 6. For me, I appreciated how you just methodically walked through all of chapter 6.
Oh,
which is that sounds weird to say because it's no different than what we normally do.
Yeah.
And so, but I appreciate that. Like, it's just another book of the Bible. Just because the world has some very strong opinions about it, just because there's certain things thought about, like, we're not going to deviate from who God has called us to be as Calvary, to teach and to preach chapter by chapter, verse by verse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so not taking out of context anything, not reading into scripture, anything, but just methodically, and it took us a hot second to get through 6. Like, even just you starting the message, reading it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's still going. We're only halfway.
Yeah, we're reading this whole daggum thing right here. So, I don't know what you had. I have one thing.
Let's go. I have one question that's not really related to 6.
So I have I would say, a pretty deep scholar. This is this is my silent rogue, or this is a good friend who I think is very, very smart, and we have been communicating quite a bit through Revelation.
Okay.
I would say he's probably one of the premier guys that, like, if you're studying Revelation, you want to talk to this guy or whatever. And so I actually have a correction that I need to make.
Oh, shoot. This just in.
Now, not like, is salvation not in Christ? Nothing like that. Some people might be like, all right, that's kind of that splitting hairs.
I was waiting for him to.
Yeah.
No.
But like a small little correction here, which is good.
Hold on. Now I'm trying to think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's play the game. Where do you think? So in a sense, what I'm saying is I was slightly off on one part. And what could that be? Let's see what Jerron thinks.
Where's the Jeopardy music? I honestly have no.
Can we insert that in the?
We can't. I don't know that it's copyrighted. Wow, whatever. I don't.
And I'll probably tell you this and be like, of course, only like a really deep theologian scholar that, like, my geek outs are like nothing. Tuesday to him, right? So
I honestly have no idea.
Okay, so he was watching, and I said in the statement about the Antichrist that he had a bow but no arrows, and so that he was, threat of war but through peaceful means. The word bow there, I read about 5 commentators for every Sunday, and that was the overarching kind of concept. There's sometimes where they all align, sometimes they don't, and looking at things and knowing that the Antichrist is going to come and he's gonna succeed and he's gonna conquer through peaceful means at the start of it. And I stand by that. That's in Scripture. Can't and we know that the enemy only wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And this is going to sound funny, what I love that I said Sunday. So like the same way that it impacts me or it impacts other people, it impacts me. It doesn't matter that I'm the one giving the message. But something that impacted me was when I said, yes, the enemy only wants to steal, kill, and destroy, but nobody said that was going to be his first move on the chessboard. So it is going to be through peaceful, but my deep source, my deep source.
Your deep fake.
He said, so your statement about the bow with no arrows in the hand of the Antichrist. So the Strong's Greek lexicon uses the word toxin, Toxon. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, and I'm getting the Strong's number right there, but there's that word, right? It uses the same word in Genesis 9:13 when God set a bow in the sky as a covenant. And so in Revelation 6, the Antichrist doesn't have a weapon of war. He doesn't have like a bow and arrow bow. He has a covenant of peace in his hand. And that fits so much more because we understand that he's going to sign a covenant with the Jews. And I'm reading email right now. To understand this, by the time this occurs, the rapture will have already happened, correct, and put the world into chaos, which, you lose. We kind of did some rough
2
math.
billion people.
Yeah, we lose 2 billion. Yeah, there's going to be a little chaos there. And this is what causes war, of which Israel will be part of. And the results of the war is one world government to come that will, let's read that sentence again. The results of the wars is the one world government to come that will come about. So, that's what that war is going to bring about. And it will eventually be divided into 10 kingdoms, of which the Antichrist will rise out of. And so the covenant of peace, and then in parentheses, false peace, and we talked about that. Like we don't find peace in anything else other than Jesus. That's a faux, false, fake peace. That's what he has. And the many, not all Jews, will agree, and that goes back to Daniel 9:27. He's going to sign a covenant with them. And the ones that will not agree are the ones that understand that this covenant is really a covenant of death, by God's words in Isaiah 28. They're the ones that they agree, they call it a covenant of peace. However, God in Isaiah 28:15, he calls it a covenant with death, and this covenant will be broken, which when we talk about covenants with God, those don't break. Yeah. We don't break covenants with God. And so this happens during what Isaiah calls the overwhelming scourge, which is the 70th week of Daniel, i.e. the tribulation. And so he breaks the covenant with the many when he enters the glorious land, Daniel 11:41. So a lot of pieces to put together, but the key was just, understanding that's the same word used back in Genesis with the bow and having the, what's the precedence there in that word? It was signaling a covenant of peace that God would not destroy. He brought peace, and then that's the same bow that's not the same bow, but the same word is used for. So he's bringing a covenant of peace, the Antichrist. And so
you done messed up, AA, Ron.
I done messed up, AA, Ron, right there. So I thought that was good. And it's a teaching moment to say, us as pastors, we are called to live above reproach, but definitely we don't live above correction. And especially with Revelation, I picked up 2 extra commentaries that I normally don't read to try to give even more full understanding. And we as humans get it wrong all the time. I mean, these 4 or 5 guys that I read, I would say are the top minds. I mean, some just super smart dudes, and they all don't agree. And a lot of the time, like, I don't think there's been a Sunday where in every verse I've read, everything that I'm studying, they're all like online with it. And that's good. And I want to see the difference. And then, and that's not replacing the Holy Spirit or anything like that. That's my study. Then that goes into the sermon prep or whatever. So that I was like, and so that's good. There you go. Heard it first on the breakdown.
Could only imagine what your scholar friend would have said about my sermon last week.
You want to know? I can tell you. He watches every week.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad?
Oh, no.
He's like, here's 37.
No, we would be holding, like, because some people would be like, wow, that's really minute. Okay, bow not with arrows, it's a bow. But we still defended and pointed that the Antichrist is coming with peace. Just there's that little detail or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's what so I don't think we're heretical by any means.
Yeah.
Not heretical by any means. And there's just different things that we focus on. Like, so for me, somebody could have got really bogged down in 6, looking at the 7. Well, it's actually the 6 seals, because we'll get one more seal in a couple weeks. And somebody could get bogged down in that. And so you can take the same text and the same meaning, but how you want to apply it and how do you want to present it can be different.
Yeah.
So it's not really like there can be wrong and stuff like that, but take Laodicea, for example. When we preached over the church in Laodicea, that was actually the second time I've preached that in front of a church.
Okay.
And the first time was totally different. I used more of my medical background, and I kind of walked up and I said, hey, we're going to treat Laodicea, this church, like it's a patient coming into a doctor's office. And I gave a couple stories about being a nurse and patients and some of the crazy things that we saw. And so we had, the patient presenting with which symptoms. We had evaluation, diagnosis. We had what's the prognosis and different things like that. And so we used those as kind of our topical outline of chapter or whatever of Laodicea. And that was really good. But I didn't do that when we went to Revelation again. So it was a totally different one, but you still hold fast to the word. So
that would have been so great. Okay, next time we do that, I want to.
Yeah. We could probably find it somewhere. Who knows? Who knows where it's at?
Okay, so here's a question that my wife and I had last night.
Uh-oh.
Because I think there is a...
Toilet seat goes down.
Which way do you put the toilet paper?
Yeah,
is it over or under?
The patent says over. There's a they patented it. So I'm wondering, can I patent it the other way? And like invent toilet paper that goes on the under?
You just gave our entire audience that means
I have recorded proof, evidence.
Maybe.
Anyway, all right, question. Sorry, we got distracted by toilet paper.
Whoosh.
Oh, squirrel.
So my wife and I were talking last night, which has been fun as we've kind of dissected Revelation. And so my mind totally just went blank.
Nope. Conversation last night.
Oh, okay.
Revelation.
So I think because we have a lot of preconceived notions about Revelation and what is and isn't and does and doesn't happen, when we talk about peace, and that leading out with peace, here's where I go to, probably very wrong. Is it going to be like almost a utopian-esque society?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering, is if that's what leads out in the kind of the whole world is in chaos because the rapture's happened, billions of people are gone, there is absolute absurdity in every way going on, and so something has to lead. And in my mind, the closest thing, or the opposite thing from chaos, is the closest thing that we could ever have to perfection.
Yeah.
And so is that manipulation a more utopian-esque society?
Yeah, I definitely would say it would be that. And so it's almost in line, you ever heard that question? Like, would you want heaven with the gold streets, the no more tears, the no more pain, and without Jesus? And it's like, some people would say, yeah. Yeah, because the destination. Put your hand down. Because the destination, sometimes is overemphasized than it is the relationship and being with Christ. And so if I can have all of those good things without Jesus, I'll take it. The problem is what makes all those things good is the presence of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, it's not heaven without him. And honestly, I think it's going to be the same way. It's going to be this world is in chaos. And so how do we have peace where it's not going to be true peace? It's going to be absence of war.
Yeah.
It's going to be absence. Honestly, I could even see, because of where our world is even at and the level of social justice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you focus on social justice without the gospel, you're just doing community service.
Mm-hmm.
But how many churches over focus on social justice, and there's no gospel to their message or whatever? It's going to be, there's going to be no more need for that, because it's going to be all of those things that, like, oh, this is peaceful, this is nice, this is good, there's no more wars, there's no more racism, there's no more whatever. I think there's going to be things like that, and it's going to be very deceptive, and as it will be. I mean, it's not even that it's going to be a lie. I think he really will provide an absence of war, a utopian. The deception is that it's always going to be that.
Yeah.
We know he's going to break the covenant in 3.5 years. He's going to end that peace. And so I think the deception is like, oh, yeah, this is what we've always wanted. It's like, actually, no.
Yeah. This is good until it's...
Yeah, because even in that, like, take a very utopian... I don't know, you'd call it, I want to say communistic, where like nobody's poor, everybody has what they need, everybody's taken care of, nobody's fighting, we're all getting along, it's all, Woodstock, 70s, 60s, we're all high, getting along, give peace a chance, the Beatles were finally right, whatever you want to say. Your heart will still yearn for something more. Yeah. It will not fulfill that. And so that's sometimes the struggle we even get into, even this side of glory as Christians, before we're even walking through the end times, is we fall for such a faux peace. Mm-hmm. And we don't understand that the peace of God in our lives isn't a calmness in our life, internally or externally. Yeah. The peace with God is that we are at peace with God. Yeah. And from there overflows a peace of God. But the initial intent is to be at peace with God, meaning that before we surrendered to him in faith and trust, we were at war with God. And so that's, when we talk about the peace of God, it's not that you're sitting by the lake on a nice morning and the water's at peace and you just feel restore my soul, and we read Psalm 23 and it's all great. I've been fighting God, and now I'm not, and I am at peace with him. My life's still broken. Life's still messy. The kids are still crazy. I'm still a broken creature, even though I'm redeemed and being restored. And I have good standing with God, but I'm still in the middle of my own sanctification. So it's that right standing with God is the peace of God, and that overflows so that you take the atheist and you take me as a Christian. Yeah, we both have kids that, at times can drive us up the wall. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought you were a Christian, Nick. Why wouldn't that go away? Or, well, you don't have financial problems, do you? You never worry about paying a bill or, doing anything, or the gas money going up, or, we say all these things and it's like, oh no, I have the peace of God. And it's like, that's a lie. Mm-hmm. The peace of God is that I am in a relationship with him. And that's what quiets the waters that are raging within my heart and my mind. Not that my life is perfectly smoothed out and ironed out. Yeah. And so many people want that faux peace, and they give up on God when they don't get that. They have that emotional moment at a church service or a worship service or a camp or a conference, and then 3 weeks later, hold on, their life is still crazy and messed up, and well, I thought I was supposed to have peace, and they give up on them. Yeah. Which goes back to the parable of the soils. That's either the shallow soil or the weeds that's going to choke them out. There's no depth there. There's a false expectation because they're going after a false peace. And I think that's the very thing that the Antichrist will provide. It's not going to be, again, counterfeit. It's going to seem almost to the real thing. And there's, even with the counterfeit money, there has to be something, at least parts of it have to be authentic. Yeah. So you take let's go with art, because I like art. If you're gonna fake a Van Gogh, you need to make the paint the same way he did. because that's going to be the easiest telltale sign.
Yeah.
You can't just go down to the store at Joann's and buy paint.
Can't buy Van Gogh paint.
You can't buy Van Gogh paint because that's not how he made his paint. You can't just go down to Hobby Lobby and grab a canvas because that's not how he, I mean, so it has to be a real canvas of that era. It has to be real paint style, to make it. Like there has to be, and those are real things.
They're authentic pieces.
They're authentic
but the
pieces.
piece as a whole.
But when you put it together and you call it a Van Gogh, that's the fake part. And so there is going to be real elements to the piece that the Antichrist is going to bring. And I mean, even now, let's call it now. That's the same thing that Satan wants to do in our life. There's going to be real elements to the counterfeits that he's bringing. But we have to see it not just for its different pieces, but what the whole is. And that's going back to the line in the sermon that if we try to find peace in anything other than Jesus, I mean, that's the key marker right there.
Yeah.
So like if there's this one world leader and he's uniting and everything's peaceful, it's like if I'm not seeing Christ magnified and glorified, yeah, that's not peace.
Yeah. And so often we find ourselves, and I love what you said, we focus on our present realities, and we view, like, that's how we base our worldview, so when my life is chaotic, then my relationship with the Lord is chaotic. Like, those are those direct correlations of, like, oh, my life should be peaceful because I'm at peace with God. My life isn't peaceful, therefore I'm not. Like, we just make those direct correlations, and it's like, we've missed the mark completely.
Because we think, even like, so right now in our, and where we're at in the church age, oh, if my life is troubled, I'm doing something wrong. And it's like, or it could be that you're doing something right. Like, think of what Jesus did. He came to comfort those who were disturbed, and he disturbed those that were comfortable. So there's times in my life that I'm resting in my comforts. It's like I need the Lord to shake me up a little bit, disturb me. And then other areas of my life that are very disturbing, and I need the comfort of the Lord, And so that's what's kind of hard, is like, oh, my life is hurting and everything's upside down. It's like, there is a phrase that we use, growing pains. There's a reason for that. It's not easy. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes it's going to hurt a little bit. I mean, all the descriptors that we use talking about maturing in our spiritual growth, refining with fire, pruning, even surgical, that we're allowing the Holy Spirit to cut out things of our lives like a surgeon. It's like, none of those sound good.
No.
You know what I mean?
Sound painful.
Yeah, they sound painful.
Chopping things off.
But then the moment, the moment we endure a little bit of pain, it's like, oh, we run from the Lord, or we at least shake our fist at him, and it's like, why am I having to hurt to grow in my faith? And it's just like, where you didn't get that from Scripture.
Yeah.
Which is concerning, because then we are making these non-biblical statements as truth statements.
Yeah.
And then trying to find Scripture to back them, or at least, our attack of God's character to say, well, I'm experiencing this, so God's not who he says he is. And it's like, he never said he was that. You're worshiping a false expectation of who you think Jesus should be.
That's so good.
You're not you're not revealing to yourself. You're not finding who God really is, who Jesus really is, and following him. You have this kind of preconceived idea a little bit. So
that's good.
Well, I don't know about all that, but and that's just me. That's my life right there. Like,
dude, that was my life the last week.
We've had a rough couple of weeks.
That's been the last 2 weeks of my life. No, because it's like we were sitting on the couch last night, which honestly I can't remember the last time that we've, like, in the craziness of life and kids and everything, just like sat down and so we've kind of popped questions back and forth, like, hey, what did you get out of, or what did you, I really appreciate, just things like that. But we were talking last night, and, we were just trying to flesh out what does peace look like when we're not here?
Yeah.
When the world is has to be in complete chaos.
Yep.
Like, and it doesn't take much for us to think, okay, a large percentage of the population is gone.
Yeah.
There's going to be some, it may not look like turmoil like we see now, like
Yep.
war or things like, but there is going to be some sort of, we are black and white people. We want and need explanation, you know? And so as we kind of flesh that out, the only place that I could come was that very utopian kind of society where what we think and feel in our present reality makes us believe that this is good and this is going to last, and then catastrophically, not only is it not going to, it's going to get real ugly.
Yeah.
Real quick.
And I think the other, because sometimes we read Revelation, especially when we get to this like chapter 6 and on, and we're going through the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, and all the stuff that we're going to see, and we hit, so I think, very pointed, hit very well, really defended the point. Like the church is not going to endure through this. The church is not going to be in the tribulation. We really, that is a theological point revealed in Scripture that we are holding fast to. And that does have implications, obviously, for us, because then it's like, okay, good to know. Here we are.
I have peace about that now. Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll hear then why are we studying? Why do we read this then if this is not going to be a part of us? And I was using this as an analogy for something else at home. I was talking to one of my kids about something, and I used the same analogy for something different. But it's kind of like the abortion argument. When I know, so you gave the face for going to like left field. Okay. One of the arguments that we get pushback on is why, specifically me as a man, why should I have an opinion about an abortion? Like, oh, you don't have a uterus, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't get to speak into it. And the response to that is, it doesn't matter my body parts. Every member of society, I think one is allowed and should, and to have an opinion about the morality of the law of the nation, the community, the culture, we should be able to speak into the morality.
Otherwise you start leaning into dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what that is. And so, yes, you are right. I do not have a uterus, but I do have a body part that does play a critical role in conception.
Thank you for your...
See, I softened it. I don't know.
That might be the most normal, mature thing I've ever heard come out. Like, in the sense of how that could have gone.
And so, sorry, not even trying to bring levity to this situation. So it's like, when we're talking about conception, we're talking about this new life at conception and our treatment of that person. That's a morality issue. And so as a member of this culture, this society, this nation, I should be allowed to speak into that morality.
Yeah.
And when we try to take that away, that's not good. And so we need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And we have to provide that. And so as we are studying Revelation, hey, we're not going to be a part of that. Why are we studying that? We need to understand what's going to go on even in this, where maybe I personally will never experience an abortion.
Yeah.
I'm a male.
Yeah.
Now I could experience it very close secondhand if my significant other, spouse, or but no concern there. But that would be the closest. Like when I got cancer, like I was in the driver's seat, but my wife was in the passenger seat. We experienced it two different ways. So why are we studying Revelation if we're not going to experience it? Well, we need to understand holistically, theologically, because one of the questions that so many people struggle with is the problem of evil. And I honestly believe that is more than abortion, more than homosexuality and gender and all that. Like, what is one of the toughest questions for the church to answer well is going to be the problem, is not going to be, is the problem of evil. And how can there be so much pain and suffering? And we have a God that we claim to be so loving and merciful and faithful. Like, how does he allow this evil to happen? And why doesn't he do anything about it? And we kind of talked about that at the very beginning of Revelation. And it's like, everybody wants to ask that question. Why doesn't God do anything about it? Then when we get to the part that we say, all right, this is what God's going to do for those that are
we lose our minds.
Yeah. And then the other sense that I kind of talked about Sunday was we can't look at the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, and see those things and then try to interpret God from those. Because how God is acting towards evil is different than how God acts towards righteousness. You know, and so to see, hey, that's how you're acting towards evil. Oh, that's how you're going to treat everybody? No. Like if we're camping, me and the kids and the wife, we're camping, and a mountain lion rolls into the tent or into the campsite, I'm going to treat that mountain lion differently than I'm going to treat one of my kids. You know, but just because somebody sees how I treat this threat of danger.
Oh, he's angry.
Look at that guy. I pray for him and his kids. Like, could you imagine being one of his kids? That's a daggone mountain lion. You know, we went to there, curl it up, pet it, tell it it's doing a great job, and you know, so proud that you're my kid. No, like, and so God is treating evil, which, the key things are, we have to view God's universal judgment in the tribulation through the lens of the cross. It is his treatment of them is out of rejection of Christ. And even in that, even in his treatment, we see kind of the rhythm, which is another like shalom peace. We see the rhythm of God. He doesn't just bring all the seals, all the trumpets, all the bowls all at the same time and just decimates everything, which he could.
Yeah.
And he would be righteous and just to do so. But instead, he brings a rhythm about it. And I believe, just like he did in the Exodus with Israel and Egypt, he did this in a rhythmic way so that those whose hearts are hardened to God, they would continue to be hardened. And those who would turn to God would have an opportunity for that. So we actually see more the mercy of God in the tribulation than we see the wrath of God. That's why it's a book of hope. That's why it's a book of encouragement, that even in God's dealing with those that have rejected him, there is still mercy. Now, the issue is we know that day is drawing near. And so there will be at one point that will stop.
Yeah.
But nobody at that moment will be able to look at God and said, I just never had the opportunity. You never gave me a chance. You never. So what is more on, and I don't want to say like reading between the lines, but to take it fully, when we see that, like you see more the mercy of God in the tribulation, even here. And so chapter 7, it's a parenthetical chapter. We'll talk about that Sunday. And so these are just filling in the details, filling in the gaps for us of what's already taken place in this time. And, for him to seal 144,000, like that's different. There's a little bit of different wording here. That's different than him like calling us into ministry. I'm not one of the sealed 144,000, and nor is my calling upon my life like that. Yeah. I think that sealing's going to be a little bit different because they're going to live through the tribulation. He called me as a pastor, but how many pastors do we know around the world are being killed for their faith and for their, ministry? So it's going to be a little bit different. But here we have like a very active action that's going to be done by God, sealing the 144,000 for what? They're going to be these Jewish evangelists. That's their. So we'll read that at the first part of 7. The next part of 7, we see the great multitude, which is the 5th seal. Those are the tribulation saints. And so we're going to see the fruits of that ministry. And
Which is unlike anything we've ever
yeah.
experienced.
Yeah, the Great Tribulation is actually going to be a great harvest of salvation. That's like going to be a key thing I'll talk about Sunday. So I'm like giving away half the sermon already. But and that's what the hard part is. Like you have to hold all that in tandem. It's like, so I say something heavy Sunday that, a fourth of the population is going to be killed. Well, hang on, because when we get to the trumpets, a third of the population is going to be killed. Then a fourth plus a third is actually half the population is going to be killed. And we're not even to the bowls, which some theologians would say that is only the tribulation. That's the great tribulation. That's the literal hell on earth. And it's like half the population's gone and we haven't even got to the hell on earth part. Like what the heck? No. So that's the, and so we read all of that, we say those heavy things, but we have to say it in the context through the lens of the cross. One, it is out of a rejection, but there is still mercy available. Now it looks differently than it does in the church age, and we could get all theological and talk about that, but more the focus of, again, how do we affirm and hold to God's character through that? It's answering the problem of evil. And even in God's answer, he reveals his mercy as well. Yeah. It's like, dang.
Real quick, for someone who's new to the podcast, new to faith. Define grace. Define mercy.
See if I can do this right. I tried to do it on a Sunday one time and I just so butchered it. And I was like, go back and watch it like 3 times. Maybe I'll figure it out. So, and it's good that you bring this up because these are churchy words that we just love to say, like, the grace and the mercy of Jesus. And it's just like, what is that? Like, I went to school with a girl named Grace. Sorry, bad jokes. That's what I do.
I didn't know any mercies.
You didn't know any mercies?
I didn't know any mercies.
Yeah. Grace is not getting, I'm sorry, see, I'm already messing it up. Grace is getting what you don't deserve.
Okay.
So there's times I want to show my kids grace, and so when they act up and it's been a rough day, we'll actually go to Sonic.
Oh.
And we'll get them ice cream. And I'll say, you don't deserve this, but I'm giving this to you anyway, so that you understand and know what grace is.
Okay.
I am giving you what you don't deserve. Mercy is not getting what you do deserve. And so in the same breath, instead of getting ice cream, you deserve punishment. You deserve a whooping. But I did not give that to you. And that is the mercy of God.
Yes.
That's that's the quick, easy, street level kind of definitions.
But it's good because when we come to Revelation and I feel like that language changes from grace to mercy.
And that's why you never hear. Yeah, let me process it real quick. Don't quote me, but you always see grace listed as a gift, but never mercy.
Never thought about that.
Grace is a gift because you're getting something. Oh, I don't deserve that. That's why it's a gift.
Yeah.
That if you think you're deserving of it, you erase the giftedness of the gift. And so if you think you deserve it and God gives it to you anyway, that actually, it not only smears the gift, it smears the gift giver. Because then he didn't give you a gift. He now you're just doing commerce with one another. I did this, I deserve that. Like, I was a good boy giving me my payment. You're just doing commerce at that point. And God has never asked us to do commerce with him.
Yeah.
Trust and belief and receiving salvation as a gift, that's not commerce. Nor does he look down the corridor of time, which some people think that's what foreknowledge is. And he sees that, you'll respond to him in faith, so he gave you. No, that's commerce. Mm-hmm. Because, it's a free gift to us, where mercy, he's not given you. Like my pastor kind of used, I forgot how he did this one time. He was using like a front hand or a backhand. Like, grace was giving you, he'd hand out and like he's extending a gift what you don't deserve. And mercy is he would want a backhand. And he's like, but I'm not going to do it. That's mercy. That I want a backhand. You deserve a good backhand.
That's a good.
Yeah, you deserve a good backhand. Not going to give it to you. My hand's going to extend a gift to you instead.
Yeah, because when you give something that you're.
Yep. So in the cross of Christ, you see both with a gift that we don't deserve, salvation, and then the mercy of God, the wrath of God that we do deserve. He doesn't pour out on us.
Yeah.
And I think he could have gave us the gift of salvation and poured his wrath on us, but then he wouldn't have been merciful. And then if he didn't pour out his wrath on us, but he didn't give us the gift of salvation, then he wouldn't be graceful. But Jesus is grace and mercy. That they are two separate things, but they go very well hand in hand together. And so you see the fullness of God in that.
Which even for me, like, okay, let's go back to the conversation about why we're studying Revelation. Like, why does it matter if we're not going to be here? Why are we diving into? Like, and I've so appreciated the language that you've used. We're going to let the character of God be a lens in which we interpret the words of God that we find in Scripture. And it's like, especially in our culture, in our context, so often what we want to do is cherry pick, or we want to find the how does a good, loving God allow evil? You know, like we want to go find those dichotomies, like something doesn't make sense. And it's like, it's never going to make sense if you only study bits and pieces. Like if you don't have the full context and the full understanding, then all you're going to see God as is a merciful God, but not a gracious God, or only gracious, but not merciful, or only wrathful and vengeful without grace and mercy. Like you're never going to get the full, and I don't want to say it this way, I can't think of any other way to say it, personality traits of who God is and his character.
No, that's good. Like think about when you first met your wife. So she's probably not even your girlfriend at the time. You were just out hunting.
She was dating somebody else
on the campus of SBU. The crocodile hunter over here
in another relationship.
You know, and so as we have gotten to know our significant other, so let's walk it through the dating phase. You know, there was a certain level of depth that we understood when we learned not how we dealt with good things. You know, because that's all the first few dates are. It's all fake. Let's just be real. You're going to go to really nice restaurants.
The best of the best.
You're going to dress really nice. Like you want to create a really good environment and atmosphere to try to bring out not only the goodness in them, but the goodness in yourself. You want to put your best foot forward. We say all of those things, right? And those are good things.
Yeah.
Is this person someone I could have fun with, that I could see, But then there's another level of eventually when poo hits the fan, you get a flat tire, it's raining, something goes wrong, how does that person react? That brings another depth of understanding of that person. My wife knows me. She knows how I'll act when things are going great and I'm just loving life. And then she knows the depth of my depravity when everything goes wrong, you know, and I'm acting crazy. Well, in the same breath, yes, we won't experience the wrath of God being poured out, but the manner in which he is doing it, and as it's been revealed to us, we get to learn more about God. And so, like you're saying, we get to understand those character traits, those personality traits, and that is good for us, even though that we're not going to experience. Like, so in the same breath, sorry, keep moving here. How I act when I go to a restaurant where my wife might not experience that, she wants to see how would he act, and there, you know, even when I'm not around, this is who he is. He does not change. And so we have a God that we say is graceful, merciful, loving, all of those, you know. And so even in the things that we are not going to experience, we get to see a glimpse of that, and it's like he is still who he says he is. So when scripture says, I, the Lord, do not change, when he declares that to us, even in his outpouring of wrath, because he's still a wrathful God, he's still a just God, he's still a holy God, but even in that, we see his mercy and his grace through it. And so yeah, we're not going to experience it, but even in the things that we're not going to experience it, we can experience the character of God. And why wouldn't we want to know more about God? Like, even, wow, if that's how he is treating those that have rejected him, that he's gonna put it in waves, and there's gonna be a rhythm to it, so that there is going to be a harvest of that is going to be uncountable of salvation, where he could, and he would be rightly so, and it would not smear his character.
Yeah.
But he still offers that, like, that's the God that we serve. Like, that's why it's important for the church, even though we're not going to experience tribulation, to study tribulation, because is God who he says he is? And when we dig deep and see his orchestration of these events, yeah, he is, no matter how horrible they are.
Yeah.
Because in the same breath, he's done this in our own heart. So in tribulation, he is pouring out his wrath. At the same time, he is pulling people out of that onto salvation. And so now look at our lives. How can God kill sin, but also save the person at the same time? He can't just completely decimate us, nor can he wink at our sin. So how does he kill one thing when that's a part of who we are? And that's why the cross of Christ is so great, is because it does kill sin, defeats sin, but doesn't obliterate us at the same time. And we're called out of that, So in a small sense, we get a glimpse of that individually. He's just going to pour out that same wrath, because the wrath reserved for us was poured out on Christ on the cross. And so you get a small glimpse of that what he's going to do through the tribulation, even though there's his holiness, his righteousness, his justness is going to be poured out through his wrath. At the same time, there's going to be salvation available and will be extended for those tribulation saints. So I think it defends even more. This is a loving, graceful, merciful, truthful, like, everything that we've known about God, yes, this is who he is, even more. And that's why, I don't think we should be scared of revelation. Now, if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, if you've never put your faith in you should be absolutely terrified. And I even said it Sunday, like, I think there's enough evidence that we could look at Christ through all the positive attributes and say, I want a relationship with him, and we should run to him, so we're being delivered to something.
Yeah.
But if some of us are so stubborn and thick-skulled that doesn't do it for us, I hope we literally scare the hell out of you.
Yeah.
Understanding that we are destined for hell, we are destined for separation from God. And the best way, poetically, literal, figurative, whatever, it's rooted in a reality that the biblical writers could describe it: hell, fire, brimstone, darkness, everlasting fire, weeping, gnashing of teeth. Like, whatever that is, I don't know if I want a part of that. No, I definitely don't. And so how do I, and that's a good starting spot, like, to run to the Lord in fear. Well, that's the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah.
To understand, who am I in light of an eternal being, God, who, he cannot allow sin, depravity, whatever, into his presence. And so how do we, and I love the line, not the, do you know if you go to heaven if you die tonight? Like, if you were to stand before God, why would he allow you, a broken, horrible sinner, right? Like, if you've done one sin, which we've all sinned, why would he allow you into his perfect presence? How could he allow you into his perfect presence? So if it's through the positive attributes, or if we, lead out of, like, within our own heart, like, oh man, the fear of being eternally separated from God and whatever the descriptors are of that, like, both are very good motivators. And some people kind of bash at that.
Yeah.
They think, oh, no, we don't need to run to the Lord in fear. And it's like, how many people in the Bible ran to the Lord out of fear?
Because what you're going to find in that is you're going to find that's not the only.
Yep.
You're going to find grace. You're going to find love. You're going to find truth. And for the one that runs to that first, then you also have to learn about the wrath and the judgment.
And I think there's been more struggles of faith for those that ran to the Lord out of love and had to learn his wrath and his holiness and his justice, compared to those that understood maybe his holiness and justice and then learned of his love. Most of the Old Testament understood the holiness of God.
Yep.
Think of what the whole tabernacle and the temple, and even, Uzzah dying because he put his hand up against the Ark of the Covenant. Well, why would God kill? Because David did wrong and he was not carrying the Ark in an appropriate manner. So God's holiness is so just that it requires that? Yes. The Old Testament, those cats, they understood the holiness and the righteousness of God. Like Moses, the most humblest of man, he understood. Isaiah understood. He's having this vision, or he's in the throne room and like, who am I, a man of unclean lips? Like, I'm going to die. And if it wasn't for the angel coming over with a piece of coal to atone for his blood guiltiness, right? And he made him clean, ritually pure. Like, he led in holiness first, then he understood the mercy of God to not take his life and kill him. Jonah, Jeremiah, Hosea, it all led in the holiness of God first. We get to the New Testament, we see Jesus, which he absolutely is, grace, love, and mercy. But it's like we look at him as if he is not the same God of the Old Testament. For some reason, why did we diminish the holiness of Christ?
Holy God and timid Jesus.
Just because he ate with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes didn't make him any less righteous or pure or holy.
And I've even, like, in my own life, I've struggled with that is, in my prayer life is just, even within our family, just working through the fact that we have the privilege of talking with a holy God and that he does care for us and he does want to know our hearts and he wants us to have that conversation with him, but not to do it so flippantly that it's, oh Lord, bless this meal. Oh Lord, let me get good rest tonight. Oh Lord, if you'd help me win the lottery. Oh, like, just very flippant. Like, I go back, one of the things when we were in Bible college, I remember, like, we spent a whole day talking about the priest tying bells around their ankles when they walked in the Holy of Holies.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Because if they didn't do the rituals 100% perfect,
you walk in the presence of God in an unholy,
you're done.
Done.
So if the bell stopped ringing, no one else can go in and get you. We had to drag you out.
I've heard that's what Jingle Bells is really about. So next time you sing it, think about that dead priest walking in the Holy of Holies. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle bells.
I'll never hear that song the same way again.
But we see that, and I don't know why we lose sight of that, because then, like, now put it at street level. When we diminish the holiness, the purity of God, what do you think our obedience is to? Our faith, our trust is in response to his grace, but our obedience is in response to his holiness. So why do I live this certain way where I do these certain things and I don't do these certain things? Why do I live in obedience to the Lord? Because he is a holy, just God.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you miss? Then there's grace.
Yep.
But so many times we lead in God's grace, and it's that antinomianism where, oh, God will forgive me because he's a forgiving God. God will not be mocked.
And you just mocked him.
You will reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And so to have that mentality, oh, God will forgive me, I challenge that.
Yeah.
I challenge that heart that says, oh, I can go and sin and it doesn't matter because God will forgive me. Now, coming to the place to understand that I am a sinner and there's forgiveness, that's a different heart.
Yep.
But for some reason, we hold so hard to the grace of God and we have diminished the obedience to him.
Yeah.
And so in the same breath, we have held fast to his grace, his mercy, his love, but we have diminished his holiness, his righteousness, his purity. And so then when we do come to Revelation and places like that, there is the struggle. It's not that there's a problem of evil. The problem of evil is actually the problem of your misunderstanding of the holiness of God.
Dang.
So, welcome to the breakdown.
Well, next week we dive into 7.
7, parenthetical chapter. Read up, study up.
You gave us half your message already, so.
I know, I got to go rewrite it now.
Just know, next week, Nick will have a whole new sermon just for
whole new sermon
for those of you. But hey, man, thanks again for sitting down with us. We'll dive in next week with chapter 7, and we might have some exciting news to share next week.
Yeah, we got a little something
to kind of unveil, unleash, reveal. You just have to listen next week to find out what it is.
I like it.
But we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.